Welcome to the podcast that's dedicated to helping business owners prepare for exit so you can maximize the valuation and then exit on your terms. This is the Exit Insights podcast presented by Succession Plus. I'm Darryl Bates-Brownsword and I'm joined with my business partner, Kevin Harrington. And today we're going to deviate a little bit. We're not going to talk about getting your business ready for exit. What we want to do is we're going to be talking about you've already exited your business through an EOT. And what can you do to maximize the opportunity you now have? Kevin, welcome. Thanks for joining me again today.
Hi, Darryl. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one because, as you say, we normally talk about the pre-exit position and what people can do. And as you say, this will be interesting. It's post-exit. How can you improve, unravel, deal with things that come up?
Yeah. So this is something that's been coming up in conversations I've been having around the marketplace recently. I know you have as well. And it's when you're going to be interested in this if you're a trustee of an EOT, if you're a founder who's sold to an EOT, or if you're an employee whose business has moved to EOT, because there's some awareness pieces we want to pick up there for you and what the opportunities are. And what's the issue? What's the problem we're going to be discussing today? Well, you've sold your business, you've moved to an EOT, and now you're on that longest earn out possible, because half the time, a lot of businesses, when they're sold to EOT, there hasn't been much in the way of preparing the business in terms of succession planning or exit planning prior to the event. So now you've got all of your succession and exit planning after you've changed hands of the business. So if you're the founder, you've now got there's a strong chance that you've now got to keep working in the business for the next 5 to 10 years until you get your payoff. So there's the scenario. You've sold your business 100% to the EOT. You've acquired some nice, attractive capital gains tax advantages, but the risk is it's still in your hands. You've taken all the risks, so you're still exposed for another few years, and you want to minimize that risk. How can you accelerate the payments? How do you help the business become more viable so that you reduce your risk and get your payments quicker? And how do you take opportunity, and how do you help ensure that the business is going to be sustainable once that period's ended? Because if you get the business in a good shape, then you might be able to walk away and reduce your involvement in the business while you're still collecting your payments. So there's the scenario, Kevin. What do you reckon is the best way for us to attack or address this topic?
And you talked about who we're aiming this information to today, and it strikes me that probably the best thing for us to do would be to take up the position individually between if you took the position of the new business, the trust, and the beneficiaries of the trust. If you speak from their perspective, and perhaps if I take a view from the owner founder that's sold all of the business, 100% of the business into the EOT. We've got different driving forces here, and let's see how we can make those work to our mutual advantage.
Yeah, exactly. So you raise a good point. There's two main perspectives here, isn't there? There's the perspective of the owner and what they're experiencing and what their needs and desires are, because they've now got a 5 to 10 year earn out period. And we've got the perspective of the employees and the trustees, which I'll take on. And let me put my head in their position if I can. They've possibly had an EOT dumped on them without much planning or awareness, or hopefully they've had some exposure and education. We'll assume that the people who advised the business down the EOT route gave us some training and awareness of what it all means to us as the beneficiaries. So we've got some idea around what it means, but it's all brand new to us. Up until now, we've just been employees. We've been involved in doing our jobs. Some of us are leaders in the business, and we understand how to manage the business. But if it's like most SMEs, we haven't had full visibility of the financials and all the real goings on and how the strategies choices are made and how the finances work. I guess that's some of the questions and concerns, and the big concern that we're going to have is how much risk do we have? Have we just assumed taken on some risk that we're not really prepared to take on, or financial exposure do we have? They're the concerns that come up regularly for when I see it. How are you feeling as the founder who just sold your business?
Well, we've seen this time and time again. As the business founder that's exited into an EOT, quite often it's, why the hell did I do that? If people haven't done the right things beforehand, that's the emotion. But my big change as the owner founder, now the trust that owns the business, is that I used to have control. I welcomed everyone's wonderful ideas. Some of them were even occasionally workable. And, I used to be in control. I made the decisions. Now I've got no direct control because I don't own any shares in the business. I'm actually the skill I now need to use, which is not the one I was dominant in the past, is I need to influence people. I don't have power. I've got to have influence. And influence is a very different skill. It's a bit new to me, and I want to tell people what to do, but I've got no right. And people push back if you try and tell them what to do with their new business. And actually, the thing I've got to try and avoid is that a clashing of culture, where the new people are going, get out of here, you're old news. But actually, I've got a lot to give. Why do I get locked into this? Well, surely there should be a benefit to you as the trust to have my 20, 30 years of experience. I know the industry exceptionally well. I've still got the great contacts and so on. How can we make that work in a way that gives us more choices around how fast we can sort out the earnout? And also, how can we use my role in influencing the business and the knowledge to ensure the business prospers post-exit? We all have an interest in it prospering. So how can we work together on that?
We do. And I'm imagining that our business has an ambitious management and leadership team. And we've got some understanding because we've done business development and we've been responsible for bringing in a lot of the sales for the business. We didn't have high exposure to the financials, so we're not quite sure where all the money went, because we always imagine that the business is doing so much more than we thought, than it is. But hey, we've got an opportunity here to take over the business. We've got 3 or 4 people, solid people in the management team, and we're all keen and ambitious. So we understand that we've been given a massive opportunity here. You, as the founder, have got the mindset of, well, I want to get my money out, and we want to get our hands on the business of this opportunity. So we're going to take the mindset of going, okay, well, the scenario is, and the agreement is that we'll pick a number in the middle, that the payoff terms are, as they stand at the time, it looked like the business could afford to pay you off in 7 years. But 7 years is a long time for us. It's a massively long time before we really get to benefit and take advantage of the business. As we're learning, we've got more influence and control over the business now. And we're not pushing you out of the way. We want to lean on that, but we want to get our hands on the reins as much as we can, as soon as we can. So as a business development team, our best interest is to go, why don't we get some advice to bring in some experience, whether it be consulting or coaching or what have you, that can accelerate our skill growth in the business, with the total intention of cranking up sales or revenue faster than it has been in the past, because often business owners become complacent and stale and the business has plateaued for the last few years. We're going, well, that's no good. For the business to sustain, we don't want it to plateau any longer. We need to, so there's some of that is you, the founder, you have been stalling and holding us back is a sense there. So we want to change that because we're younger than you. So how do we crank up the business growth with the intention of paying you off quicker so that we can grab hold of this opportunity with 2 hands? That's how I think the business would be thinking. How do we really get there so that we can start getting the benefit a whole lot faster?
This is fascinating, isn't it? Because you just came out with that last chunk, and it made me realize something. And one of the things that I guess as an overarching solution is needed is a method to allow this free flow of talk and thought that we're having now within the real world of the new EOT and the business founder. Because actually, if you can sit and talk, you don't necessarily have to renegotiate, but at least you can start to understand each other's positions. And what I've realized as the owner in this scenario we're talking about that's sold to the EOT is that I've put myself in jeopardy here. And in any business, what you don't want to have is the knowledge, the brain IP, and the business development skill and the contacts. You don't want that all leaving the business. And I've created a situation where I've sold my business into the EOT, where I now realise that actually they can't do everything I was doing. They're great people, fantastic team. They've got so many good things about them, but actually, there's a chunk of it that I've never managed to share properly. So my responsibility to make this work has to be recognising that and making sure we don't end up with a skills leakage and knowledge leakage out of the business. So I've got to work hard with the new trust leadership team to make sure that everything I've got is handed over. And this is, if perhaps my skill is doing the big deals because I've got all the big contacts in my industry. Well, is it any wonder that the new EOT doesn't feel so empowered to do it because they don't know the people they need to talk to? So it does mean that I've got to get into what I would argue I should have done before the EOT, which is developing the leadership team, developing a succession plan, putting processes and knowledge in the right places so the business can be effective.
So let's dig into that a tad, shall we? If you're in the owner's shoes and you've just had that aha, I've really got to unpack my head, and I don't want to leave the business and take all this knowledge with me. I love this business. It's been my baby for the last 20 years. I want to make sure that it continues on after I've gone. I think that's probably a reasonable desire that many business owners would have. What do you think, Kevin, as the founder of the business, are some of the things that you need to transfer to us, because we don't know what we don't know? As new employees, we think we know. As new owners, we think we know everything, just like every new owner does when they start a business.
Well, there is that exceptionally irritating phrase. Well, I find it irritating anyway. We don't know what we don't know. It's almost a cliche. Now, flip that around. As the owner, I'm not really sure how much I know that they don't know. And so how do I find a method to comprehend that gap? And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about bridging a gap. And I mean, the approach I would take with the knowledge I've got today is I would look at functionality in the business, and I'd look at our structures model. I would be looking at those two things combined and saying, well, who does the vision? Well, how can the rest of the new team create that vision? Who develops the strategy? Pretty much, I'm fairly confident what we call the blue bits, the whole revenue delivery piece of the business. That's probably going to be pretty much okay. But I can't assume that. So I would start from a functionality analysis, saying what are all the things that are done, and I would put against it kind of who did them at the point of the EOT, and before and after, and what's the ability for people to do that, and then I think our solution, working me the founder, you the new trust and leadership team, is actually to sit and look at this and go, right, out of 10, score out of 10. how confident are you can deliver on all the negotiations into the defence industry or whatever it might be? And going through all the things that I've done and going, well, who's best? Who should be doing this in the future? If I were to evaporate, who's going to do it? How do I help them now? And how do we collectively help the business to never have this problem again where there's a key person dependence? If one person disappears, it causes a problem. Because we've got to make this trust-owned business not have the problem in 5-7 years' time. We don't want the business to be vulnerable and lose value. And it's about making sure it gains value. So almost we're behaving like we're trying to prepare the business for a new exit. And in the same way that we would work with a company that says, you know, a founder wants to leave it, Succession Plus, we've got 21-step, 5-stage process and all that. We need to be looking at that for the new trust-owned business.
Yeah, I think so.
And that will identify where the knowledge gaps are. And once we know that what they are, we can fix them. The trouble is, you and I have both seen businesses that we might not have directly worked with or advised, but we've seen the end result of some EOTs. I mean, carnage would be exaggerating it, but because some of the mistakes that have been made and the omissions in the thinking, the value of the business goes down, and therefore the ability for the earnout to be paid is a risk. It's a risk to me, the founder, getting my money back, and to you, the trust is a liability that you can't pay.
It's interesting because what I think we're saying here is if we knew what all the gaps were as the owners of the business and the people in the business, if we had some consciousness around that and awareness around that, we would have already addressed them, knowing that I wanted to, or you wanted to sell the business to at some point. So that's where it helps to get some outside expertise going, hey, look, guys, here's how you handle this. You need to look at functionality. You need to look at the various aspects of the business and how things work. And as you were speaking, the things that came to mind to me were, right, what are the reports that we have as a business that we're getting regularly? So when you were the owner, what information were you looking at that gave you comfort that the business was on track? When you were looking at the reports, what were you looking for in the reports? Give us some insight of all the rules of thumb, all of the intuition elements that you used to run the business. Some business owners tell us that I like to keep 3 months or 6 months worth of cash flow in the business. That gives me comfort to know that I've got, whatever happens, I've got 6 months cash flow in the business available there. How did you make decisions? When you made decisions, what information did you look for that gave you comfort on how to make decisions? On the size of the opportunity? Was it the size of the deal? Were there some that you just go, look, that's just too far out. It's too far out of our expertise, too risky, leave it? Or how did you make decisions on when you were making deals? How did you know if an opportunity that crossed your desk was worth looking at? What are these gut feel rules of thumb that you applied and you learned over the years? They're the things that we really want to know on decision making and reviewing information on reports and rules of thumb. So that's where I think I would start asking you as the founder of the business, as well as that, just get some clarity over who's responsible for what type of thing.
Yeah, you use the term gut feel, and so often that is used in a derisory way. Oh, they made that decision through gut instinct, like as though that's a negative thing. But of course, so many successful entrepreneurs started their business and continued to be able to use real intelligence, their own intelligence, not artificial intelligence. They use their real intelligence
Yep.
Very rapidly look at indicators, signs, signals, numbers, ratios, whatever, and get a feel for whether it's worth exploring or ditching. And if it is worth exploring, then to go to the next step and getting a little bit more detail. And that's the capability that these fantastic owner-managed businesses have in their founders. And what we have to do is go, well, okay, it sounds a bit like witchcraft at first, but let's get this. Let me share with you what matters. And And I think, me taking the role of the founder that sold in this conversation, I need to explain what the risks are, what the levers are within the business. It's okay for one or two things to not be dead right, but I can't afford for 4 or 5 things to be going wrong. And it's
Yeah.
that type of thing. And when we talk about what our products or services offering is going to be for a year, and when we start looking to the following year and planning the new ones, it's a portfolio approach. And just because I go, or someone comes to me and goes, yippee, I've got this fantastic idea, I might well pursue it as the founder, but it's in a portfolio of 10 things. And I go, well, do you know what? If that really worked, it would be fantastic. But I know that one's a high risk, but I'll stick it in there because I know I've got 7 certs, 2 mid-range and 1 big risky one here. And people need to understand that the cards they're playing with, really, which ones are going to be dead certs to win the game, and which ones are good bankers for other things.
It's a fascinating topic, because what we're doing is we're digging into the nitty-gritty from both sides of the story. So I think what it's worth noting is that we both have a common goal. We both want to get rid of you as soon as possible.
Yeah. It's in all our interests.
Exactly. And the founder wants to move on, and they're mentally ready to be moving on to the next things, but they've got this obligation, and they want to make sure that they get their money. They want to get the most from their life's work. And we, as the employees in this scenario, as the beneficiaries and the trustees of the organization, have been effectively gifted this significant, massive opportunity, and we don't want to blow it. And whilst there's an element of you only value what you pay for something, I think we need to really bring that home for the employees, because while it hasn't really cost them in terms of cash, it's costing them in terms of effort and time. And we need to bring that focus and go, okay, there is a significant upside for you here. And I know not everyone's incentivized by money, and they've got different risk profiles. And that's why we need to get the leadership team. And I think there's always merit to go, hey, look, and in an EOT, everyone's equal, but there's opportunity for the leadership team and motivate the leadership team who can have a far greater impact on the future of the business than everyone else, to create some extra motivation and incentive for those people. And they're going to work harder, and everyone will benefit. The whole team will benefit. So we've got to keep working on the culture. Can't let that slip. We've got to get clear on the big picture. And we would benefit significantly by having some sort of plan and if we really want to accelerate this and create that safety net of bringing in some expertise, of going, okay, what is the size of the opportunity? How big is this opportunity? What could this business look like with our current resources? And what are the areas where should I be spending my effort first to get the biggest bang or the quickest bang for the buck, to help us accelerate the exit of the founders and accelerate the return on investment for us? And how do we keep our eyes on the ball and not get distracted? And what I mean by that is, we need to, as the beneficiaries, we need to accelerate our learning of what you've done as the founder over 10, 20 years hard work. We need to accelerate the consumption of that knowledge, so we don't get distracted with shiny new objects. A lot of businesses, when they become EOT, the employees go, oh, we can change the car parking, we can get coffee machines, we can have days off. And that's operational thinking and self-interest. And what we want to do is go, okay, we need to be strategic. And I think the big picture here is that an EOT business is still just a commercial business, just like any other business. It's not a social workshop. It's a commercial business. It just so happens that the owners are the employees. And so that the employees, the shareholders of this business, are responsible and want to maintain the sustainable growth of the business, just like any other business. That feels like a bit of a ramble, but hopefully some key thoughts came out there.
I'm still here. I'm still here. And no, it's good stuff, Darryl. And I think there's one tool or methodology that could be used that achieves a couple of those big things you were talking about. One is the passing over of the knowledge and the training people and sorting out the
That's
gaps.
the big one, isn't it? That is really the most significant thing that we both have an interest in acquiring.
Absolutely. And then the other item that you were talking about was the ability for people to look forward from the trust perspective to how the business is going to evolve. You know, the danger is that you can say, right, well, okay, we did this last year, we can do it a bit more efficiently this year, and the new business fails to notice that the demand, the market has moved away. So you can end up with a bigger share of a almost negligible market if you're not careful. So the tool, the method I would put in here would be scenario planning. So let's say that where has been put in place and the business is being run by that now. The business is being run business as usual because you've got to just keep things moving anyway to keep the customers happy and get revenue coming in. But we're planning for the next year. So we look at for example, let's go back to products and services. We're deciding what products and services to put in the following year, rather than just to do the assume that plus 5%, that plus 10%, or we'll buy that from a different place to make that happen. Start off by doing some scenarios saying what products and services could we sell? What could we market? What is the demand? What are our competitors doing? Is it relevant to us? If we play down that game, that game down that route, what's going to be the outcome? What risks would be there? What indicators would we look for? If it went wrong, would it be terminal off the business? And by doing that with me, the founder, I'd be going, do you know why I wouldn't do that? Ultimately, you can do it if you want to, but actually, you're on the cusp of a great idea here. You've got the bones of a really great idea, and if you did it like this, which is how I tend to look at things, you could probably achieve your objective by minimising the risk and giving yourself more choices, wriggle room, and so on. So that means you're not in a situation where I'm going, this is how to do it. What we're doing is practical work, getting the next year's business planned early, where we're discussing it and talking about risks, opportunities, methods of doing it, who can do which function and so on, naturally sharing information in a way that probably we should have done before the EOT. But it works now.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is a couple of thoughts, and if I just acquired the EOT, I'd be wanting to do a bit of a stock take, and going, okay, so what does this mean for us? Let's get clear around the opportunity. So maybe we get someone in to help us with the strategic planning, just to help us take a stock take of the business. Maybe there's something along the lines of, well, a SWOT analysis would be helpful to help us understand the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats to the business. Create some awareness and learning around how to evaluate the internal and external environment, and perhaps there's a valuation of the business and go, now with an EOT, we know that we have to have a fair valuation, but I'd be wanting to make sure that I understood how that worked. And I think that's where our business insights report comes into play and would be an ideal tool or resource for the beneficiaries and the trustees to see, to help them analyze and explain and educate the scope of the opportunity to all of the employees, and to build that strategic plan off the information or fueled by the information that the Business Insights report provides.
Yeah, there's a great fun opportunity as well if the trust is brave enough, which I'm sure they would be, but to not do what I always did as the founder. As a founder, I keep some knowledge close to my chest. I don't really want to worry everyone with it. I want them to be happy and do great jobs. And so in the past, I've kind of hidden some of the major issues that have gone on, and some things happened 3, 5, 7 years ago. I never told them about because I didn't want them to get upset and leave and so on. But how about running this new business in a modern open way? It's not sharing every piece of information with everyone all the time, but explaining what the sensitivities are and the risks that we are looking at. It's great talking about our ambition, but let's talk about what we have to fight against as well, the opposition that's going on,
Yeah.
so that people don't go around going that my leadership don't tell me what's going on. Share it with them, get them to help you, spread the load across the business.
Yeah. And one of the great ways to start that education process is to, and I think we've talked about this before, but if we haven't, is to talk about your company pound. For every pound that comes into your business, how is it spent? And that way you don't have to talk about the details of your P&L, but you're giving people the headlines, and you're starting to explain and create awareness amongst everyone in the business of just how the business works. How does money flow through the business? And therefore, how careful do we need to be, or how strategic, or in terms of choices of what we do with the money, because we've only got a finite amount available for reinvesting in growing and taking the business forward. So we want to make sure that we get the best bang for the buck.
Yeah, well, I mean, you and I have both done that with quite a few people now. Some people might put it under the title of profit waterfall or whatever, but it's taking the, for every pound, where does it all disappear to, who benefits from that, who's grabbing at it on the way, and what's left at the bottom, which is for most businesses, employees are shocked at how low the profit is.
Usually, yeah.
I think another thing, the second lesson in that series would be around cash flow. Loads of big orders have been taken. Why can't we have a pay rise? Well, let's look at how that pound's disappearing. Let's apply a time perspective to it as well. We will go bust if we service these new orders the way you want us to. This gives us security long term when we service these orders, and it gives us the choice to then grow you as an individual and pay you more money further down the road.
Yeah.
And a modern business that does that well can achieve so much more engagement and loyalty from staff.
I think it's exciting. So let's wrap it up and pull it all together, shall we? We've exited our business to an EOT. Perhaps we didn't do as much succession planning or exit planning as in hindsight we would have liked to before the event, but the opportunity is to go, well, let's do that succession and exit planning now that the business has changed hands. We've got friendly owners, and we both have it in our best interest to get this right over the next few years, because as the owners, they want to leave their legacy. They want to gift something to the employees, and they want that gift to be worthwhile to the employees. The employees, it's in our best interest because we've been gifted this opportunity, which is significant and can influence our personal wealth over the coming years if we play our cards right. So how do we do that? Well, we probably want to accelerate our learning and our business leadership and ownership skills. We need to change that ownership mindset from employee thinking mindset. And a business insights report can help us with that, and facilitated with the right advisors to introduce that knowledge and skills, everyone would be better off.
Yeah. And my simple concluding point on this is that if people are going to sell their business into an EOT and the trust is going to take on the ownership of the business, it's not a flicking of a switch. It's not everything changes overnight. And if people think that, they're going to stumble around in the semi-dark for a while before they realise that it's all about to go wrong. It's actually, it's an evolution that is delivering positive results for people. So you, the business, me, the business founder, this is the time we're going to talk more than we've ever talked before. And it's going to deliver great results because we want it to collectively.
Brilliant. Kevin Harrington, thanks for sharing your exit insights with me today.
Thanks, Darryl.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Exit Insights podcast. If you haven't already, now's a good time to subscribe and get notified of all future episodes. Now, if you're planning to exit and sell your business one day, you want to be sure that it's exit ready when you're ready to exit and with the numbers that work for you. Now, this is going to need some planning. Now, the business sellability scorecard is a good place to start. Just answer a few short questions about your goals and your aspirations for your business and your succession, and you'll get a report and a score for you, your business, and your numbers. As many of our guests have already said, don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until you're ready to sell. Start your exit planning now to make sure that you're one of the 20% of business owners who successfully exit their business.